In the heart of a sleepy hill town in Africa, where the breeze carried the scent of wet soil and the air hummed with slow, peaceful rhythm, stood a church. A whitewashed chapel with a rusted bell and wooden benches worn smooth by generations of knees. The town called it God's house, but it belonged to one man, Pastor Elijah Owusu. Every Sunday, the villagers came in waves. Old women in vibrant Ankara prints, men in dusty boots and creased shirts, children barefoot, giggling until their mothers hushed them. They came to hear him, Pastor Elijah, the man whose voice thundered through the chapel walls like the roar of prophecy, whose sermons brought grown men to tears and women to whispered praise. But behind the pulpit, behind the show of righteousness, lived a man of shadows, and in a tiny back room sat the only person who saw it all. Her name was Grace, the church secretary, the quiet one, the woman who remembered everything, even what others tried to forget. Elijah wasn't born a man of God. He came to the town as a drifter, young, handsome, charismatic. He started with prayer circles under the mango tree. Then he preached by the river. And then the church gave him its pulpit. They gave him power, and he wore it like a robe of royalty. In town meetings, he was quoted more than the mayor. In homes, his voice played from old radios like a blessing. And behind his sermons were whispers of affairs, of gifts given to silence, of girls who came to him with hope and left with shame. Grace heard it all, not from rumors, from his own voice. He made her type out love letters for other women. He made her schedule secret visits. He made her clean up the mess. Always Grace kept a diary. A small black book with frayed edges and pressed flowers between the pages. In it she wrote everything. Not for revenge, not for justice, but because she needed to remember who she was before she was forgotten. She wrote about how his touch once made her heart flutter, how he kissed her hand after communion, how she believed him when he said, "You are different, Grace," until the day she found out she was pregnant, and he called her a mistake the day she told him he changed. Not with anger, with disgust. "Don't try to trap me, Grace," he said. "You know what this would do to me." That Sunday he preached on temptation and sin and women who lure men of God from the path. The entire congregation stared at her. She sat in the back pew, alone, drowning in the shame he poured over her like holy water. On Monday, she resigned, left the keys on the pastor's desk, packed her few clothes in a red plastic bag, and walked away. No goodbye, no fight, just silence. The town soon forgot her name, but Grace never forgot theirs. Time passed. Without Grace in the church, Pastor Elijah's star only rose higher. He built a new annex, installed colored glass windows, bought a brand new SUV painted white like purity. His name appeared in newspapers. He was invited to preach in Lagos, Accra, and Nairobi. People called him the Shepherd of Souls. But in the silence of his new luxury office, there were nights he stared into the mirror and saw the shadow of a woman. Her eyes, her stillness. Grace never screamed, never cursed, never begged, and somehow that haunted him more than any voice ever could. The church grew, but the village remembered. Old mamas whispered over pap at sunset. "That girl, she was good, too good for him. I heard she went to the city, teaching now. You know, that man has a curse following him." The children no longer ran to hug Pastor Elijah after service. Some even looked away. The magic was fading, slowly, quietly, and he could feel it. Yet one night, the pastor heard a knock. Soft, measured, he opened the door, and there she was. Grace, older, stronger. Her clothes were simple, but her eyes were different, calm, unafraid. "I came to pray," she said. He said nothing. She stepped in, sat in the pew where she once wept, and began to pray aloud. But her prayer wasn't for forgiveness. It was for truth. And he couldn't bear to stay in the room weeks past. The pastor's voice began to crack during sermons. He coughed more, lost weight. Doctors said it was fatigue. The elders said it was spiritual. He tried to hide it, make up light, shorter sermons. But Grace saw it. Every time she came to the church, she sat in the same pew. And every time, she smiled. Quiet. Knowing rumors grew like weeds. "He's sick. Something strange. That woman, she cursed him. No, she's just watching him die." But Grace never answered. She just kept coming. Sometimes with a notebook. Sometimes just with a hymn. But always with that same quiet fire in her eyes. Pastor Elijah was no longer the lion in the pulpit. His suits hung loose on his thinning frame. His booming voice was reduced to trembling whispers. Some said it was cancer. Others muttered, "No, it's spiritual." His hands shook as he read scripture. He forgot names. He collapsed once, mid-sermon. The church board began to whisper behind doors, "Maybe we need new leadership." And in the crowd, always in the third row, sat Grace. Not gloating, not smiling, just watching, like a mirror, reflecting everything he once was. Or night, he called for her. Not in pride, not in anger, in desperation. His voice cracked like dry wood. "Please, I need to see you." Grace came. The house smelled of medicine. His body, now just bones and breath. She sat, silent. He wept. For the first time in her presence, he wept. "Did you curse me?" he asked. She looked at him, long and steady, and said, "I didn't need to." She leaned in. Her voice was soft, like a hymn. "You cast me out? Made me feel like a stain on God's robe. But God has a strange way of balancing things." Elijah's lips trembled. Are you saying?" She nodded slowly. "You didn't just hurt me, Elijah. You infected me with shame. I simply returned it." His heart skipped. His soul shattered. She placed a worn envelope on his chest. Her test results. Positive she stood. No tears. No drama. Just finality. "I forgive you," she said, "but I'll never forget you." She walked out. And the moment she left the room, Elijah screamed. Not a cry for help. Not a prayer. But the raw scream of a man who finally saw himself. Naked. Broken. Judged that Sunday, the pews were empty. Word had spread. The great Pastor Elijah had fallen. Some said it was disease. Others whispered he carried a curse. But one thing was certain. His voice would never rise again. The church bell rang for the last time that month. And Grace? She walked past it like it never existed. The house where Elijah once lived was quiet now. No prayers, no visitors, just the ticking of an old wooden clock and the echo of regret. He didn't die that night, but something inside him did. His sermons stopped. His eyes, once full of fire, now held the dull gray of a soul extinguished. His hands shook from more than illness. He asked for forgiveness, but no one heard him louder than Grace had heard his silence. The town that once praised him now spoke his name with discomfort. Some pitied him, others called it justice. But all agreed on one thing: something holy had left the church that day. In the markets, women still whispered. He thought himself God's sword, but even swords rust. The children no longer played in the chapel yard. The choir sang softer. The bell tower grew silent. Grace never returned to the church. She opened a small school on the edge of town. One room, dirt floor, but laughter filled it. She taught the children what their parents never dared to say: that love without truth is poison, that silence can heal or destroy, that forgiveness is for you, not for them. And when people asked why she walked with such peace, she simply smiled. "Because I carried my pain long enough," she said. "Now I carry only wisdom. In the land of stories, not all justice comes with fire and swords. Sometimes it comes with silence. And the one you silence today may one day speak louder than your legacy." They say Grace never raised her voice again, but her story, it echoed through generations, not as a tale of revenge, but a warning that even the most powerful shepherd can be brought low by the sheep he chose to betray. The pastor had a pulpit, but Grace had the truth. And truth does not need a microphone.